Hey folks, I'm Papa Boris, back with another game from the 2025 Through the Ages World Championship. This is a 3-player game played between myself, Matil, and Oleksandr, and it was the second of the three-player games to finish. The third game is still ongoing, so if you want to stick around for some bonus time at the end, we will take a look at the current standings in Stage 3. Alright, Matil is up first and grabs Cleopatra. I would have done the exact same thing. You can say, well, there's only 2 wonders, maybe take your wonder while you have a chance, but I think it's pretty fair to take Cleopatra here because I, first of all, really like her, and second of all, because there are 2 really great wonders in the game, Pyramids and Library, arguably the 2 best wonders, and so having a shot at them coming out and getting them later, I think is perfectly worth it to have Cleopatra now. So Matil does that, and now it's up to me. And for my draft choice, what should I do? Well, I think the classic combo here is Homer with Colossus. I call this the classic combination because Colossus only has 2 stages, so it's a little bit easier to build. You put Homer's happy face on the bottom of it permanently, and you go on to have a great game. But I'm just getting a little prejudiced against Homer. Again, I'm not saying he's bad, it's just that I don't like in competitive situations to have an age A leader who is finicky and requires, work to get his value. I don't want to have to finish my age A wonder in order to replace my age A leader. So what I do here is I take the Colossus, but I also take it with a rich land. So why the Colossus, why not the Colosseum? Well, I think they're both great wonders, and if it was switched, I would have just taken the Colosseum and a rich land. Basically, I just don't think either one of them is worth passing up a rich land. I could consider taking Alexander the Great instead of either wonder, and doing the same thing as Matil, hoping for the Pyramids or Library, but the thing is, I actually like the leaders who are coming up here. If Oleksandr doesn't take Hippocrates, Hippocrates is guaranteed to fall into my lap for 1 action, and if Oleksandr does take Hippocrates, I'm not guaranteed, but I'm very likely to get Confucius, another leader who I really like. I love both of these leaders. I love having science, and I love getting free yellow tokens. So I figured it was worth it just to take whatever wonder was available since the Age A card was a free guaranteed rock, and just move on with my day. As it happens, Oleksandr the Great misses a chance to take Alexander the Great and takes Hippocrates, which, if only it weren't a meme, is actually probably the correct choice. You could consider doing Colosseum and Rich Land. We've also, in this tournament, seen someone do Colosseum with Homer and get 2 happy faces from your age A wonder and leader, and then, that gives you a solid foundation to work with. But Oleksandr grabs Hippocrates. I'm not actually sure what I would have done in his shoes. Maybe I would have taken Hippocrates, maybe I would have taken Confucius, and maybe I would have taken Colosseum Rich Land. I think those are all very reasonable choices, and it would probably just depend on my mood that day. Okay, so the draft is done, and we're up to the first proper turn. What is Matil gonna do? Well, things actually get kind of interesting right away this game. Matil plays Cleopatra, fine. Takes the Colosseum, fine. And then builds a stage of the Colosseum. Now, I gotta be honest, I don't actually understand this move. It does use Cleopatra's rock, so it's kind of like having your mine built, but another thing that uses Cleopatra's rock is building a lab. But this way, if you build a lab, you get science, but if you build the first stage of the Colosseum, you don't get anything. So I think that Matil just threw away a science here for absolutely no reason, as far as I can tell. The Colosseum's not a wonder that needs to be rushed, so, whether you build it a turn this turn or you build it in 2 turns, it's a wonder that doesn't really change much. Oh, okay, yes, you can now have an extra card draw. All right, if you got to consumption, you have an extra worker, but the action and the worker are going to come later if they don't come now. Unlike, for example, Pyramids or Library. You build those a turn sooner, you get a science a turn sooner, you get an action a turn sooner. There's nothing like that with the Colosseum, so I don't think rushing it makes sense on principle, and I don't actually see, if you are, for whatever random reason, trying to finish your wonder early, so I don't know, you can put an age 1 wonder under construction or something, it's still not worth it compared to just getting more science. Now, given that he chose to use Cleopatra's ability, it makes sense that his final action is to take a rich land. I just think it's that 3rd turn should have been a lab instead of the Colosseum stage. He passes the turn, and because he did take the Colosseum, I do get Confucius for 1 action. That's why I say it's almost guaranteed that if Oleksandr takes Hippocrates, I get Confucius. Theoretically, Matil could have not taken the Colosseum, done some other turn, and then Confucius would have been at 2, and then I would have taken Alexander the Great, because I don't mind that leader at all. But anyway, the normal thing happens here, so I'm just going to take Confucius, play him, make a mine, and now do I raise population or try to sneak out a little extra here? One thing to note is if you are trying to squeeze a bit extra from your turn, you should take this urban growth, not this one, because this one would make the pyramids land in the 1 action spot for Oleksandr. You want to keep the pyramids at 2 and let him choose between that and the hanging gardens. But in this case, I decided not to take the urban growth. I do think I need to incorporate that into my play more, and I have been trying to get that extra squeeze, that 1 action yellow card, instead of just mindlessly making a population every single time, just because I'm afraid of getting the religion event. But the reason I decide to do the population this time is that Saladin is here, and Saladin's a good leader. And it's been taking me a while to understand that. I know it seems kind of silly. Oh, a guy gives an extra action, Boris. You didn't realize that an extra action is good? Yeah, I don't know, man. It's the fact that it's not immediate, and the fact that you have to, take an action to play him, and the opportunity cost of other leaders. I don't know. I just wasn't that big a fan of Saladin, but it took me a while. I'm finally there. I get it. He's really, really good. And he is going to be here for me in the 1 action spot. So that could be a good way to use an action in my second turn, and I figured I don't want to hold back actions in order to avoid it. Like, I could have a very normal second turn here. Lab, raise population, taking place Saladin. Of course, that does replace my leader. Oh, I need another action. Yeah, maybe I could have still taken urban growth and still done that next time. Raise population from here, build lab, taking place Saladin. And then I still have an action left over. I don't know. It's actually an interesting call. There is also a breakthrough, which if that, it would take some work from my opponents, but if that makes it to the 1 action spot, like, that's something that I would love to take, because this is a very, very strong card, and maybe Warfare could even be worth taking. So anyway, there's these top 3 cards of the Age 1 deck are all reasonable cards. I do have extra action from Confucius. I could invest it into Warfare. Obviously, you'd prefer to do Code of Laws or a Government or something. But because all 3 cards are good, I think it's okay looking back even that I took the action here instead of trying to squeeze an extra rock out of my game. But it's a close call. Now, Oleksandr has... Oh, by the way, I got to comment on this. I draw the worst possible hand you could get as Confucius. The worst possible. Open borders and defense. So I actually can't play either of these. I can, but I can't use Confucius's ability productively, because if I throw away the defense card, I'm throwing away a defense card. And open borders, I just want to use it to get an extra military action. So it's like I don't get to use his science on this turn. But to be fair, if you get open borders, you should probably offer that as Confucius. It's just, yes, you lose a science, but open borders is so strong that you should just do it regardless of what your other card is. Okay, so Oleksandr plays Hippocrates, and he's kind of unlucky this game. He does have to spend an extra action to take a wonder if he wants to avoid the Hanging Gardens. And after building a mine, no surprise, he takes the pyramids. He was willing to pay 2 actions for the pyramids over the library, which I do think is a mistake. But over the Hanging Gardens, I think that's eminently reasonable, and we pass the turn. So now Matil is up. He plays an event. It's Development of Civil Life, so we all get a free action. And he chooses to use his development to raise his population. It's worth considering building a lab, but a little rules thing here. Cleopatra's bonus does not take effect until the action phase, and the event is flipped up in the politics phase, so you don't use Cleopatra's bonus rock if you use the Development of Civil Life. Now, he still could have done it. He still could have spent 2 rocks from Development of Civil Life to make a lab, built the next stage of the Colosseum for free using Cleopatra's ability, and then he still therefore would have had a rock left over to play Rich Land. And I think that's worth considering compared to just getting an extra food, because, the development of the population is like a free food, whereas building the lab is like a free rock. And I think it's okay to say, well, actually, I already have Cleopatra for extra rocks. I'm using her every turn, so maybe I just want a free food. Perfectly reasonable. I think I might have been tempted to get the lab personally, but it's a close call. Okay, so he builds a stage of the Colosseum. He uses Rich Land A to build a mine. He then raises his population going into consumption and takes Saladin, which I was very sad to see because I really would have liked to have this leader. A really early Saladin is quite strong, but for that reason, Matil takes him, and Matil chooses not to replace Cleopatra this turn. So he's basically willing to sacrifice an action in exchange for a rock. And that's not necessarily a bad idea, because if you look at what's happening next turn, he's going to need 6 rocks to finish his wonder and the library, and the lab. So if the Age A event deck does not cough up a rock, he actually, with 5 rocks, will need Cleopatra's power in order to do this. But again, at the risk of beating a dead horse, I don't actually understand why he built the wonder this turn. He could have used Cleopatra's rock with these 2 rocks to build a lab. Even with the choice that he made for development of civil life, he still could have built a lab. So now he has built 2 stages of the wonder and thrown away 2 science. I don't think that's justified personally, and we're going to see next turn why this line doesn't necessarily work out. You might be thinking, oh, well, but no, he's trying to rush the wonder so that he can blah, blah, blah. Well, we're going to see what happens, and I think it confirms why, at the very least, skipping 2 science to rush your AJ Wonder when it's the Colosseum is risky. His turn ends, he draws a couple of cards, it's over to me, and I offer open borders to Oleksandr. This is a very easy choice. Why Oleksandr? Well, it's because Mattil has a wonder that gives him a military action, so he doesn't need a 4th military action. Not to say that he wouldn't accept it. He might accept it, but the thing is, there's always a risk. The person's like, well, I don't want to have a 4th military action just to give an opponent a 3rd one. Because the 3rd one is much more valuable than the 4th one. So you might reject it. You might say, well, game theory, it's still some value to you. You should give it to your opponent. You still get ahead of your 3rd opponent, blah, blah, blah. That's very true, but because you don't know that a person thinks that way, it's just safer to say, you know what, screw it. Yes, you get huge value, but I get huge value as well, and both of us get some value over our 3rd opponent. Now, I make a weird move here. I know this is a weird move. I spend 2 actions for Swordsman. Now, watching Weidenbaum and him with commentary and seeing what other top players do, it's pretty clear that Swordsman is not a hot in demand card. So perhaps this is weird, and I recognize that it was weird as I made this move. But the thing is, I just actually wasn't sure what to do with my turn. So what I did was built the lab that I was going to build anyway with the development of civil life. This was just, not the luckiest turn for me to have an extra action, because sometimes when the development of civil life hits really early, there's nothing super great to do with your time. And so now I've got 4 actions and bop squap and diddle doodle to do with them. I could have taken alchemy for 3, and maybe that's actually better than taking swordsman for 2. As far as 2 action cards go, you could argue cartography is better because we know that people love to put colonies in the deck, so maybe that would have been logical. With my extra draws, I'm more likely to get colonies myself. That could have been better than Swordsman. There is another copy of Swordsman right here. I might have been able to get Swordsman later. People don't like taking Swordsman. So it's a debatable move, but the reason I took Swordsman is because Genghis Khan is here. Mattil's already claimed a leader. I don't think Oleksandr... Well, that's not true. Oleksandr might very well take Genghis Khan for 2 actions, but I was hoping that he wouldn't want to. He spent 2 actions putting pyramids under construction. He's sort of an action behind. I was hoping he would just take a normal turn and, I don't know, raise population, build lab... Or heck, raise population, take his beloved printing press, and build that instead of a lab, and then just leave the Genghis Khan. And because Mattil already has a leader and cannot take any more this age, that would mean Genghis Khan falls to me in the 1 action spot. That would mean the swordsmen are useful. Now, that doesn't mean I should pay 2 actions for them, because I might as well have been able to just, use an action on the turn I take Genghis to take these swordsmen. But on that turn, alchemy might be there. So this is the turn where I have actions to kind of burn and do nothing useful with, so I'm like, you know what, let's just take the swordsmen, they could come in handy. So I take them, I also take Breakthrough and Frugality, we're just collecting cards. It's a little greedy. I could have, of course, have raised population instead of taking the Frugality, but the way I see it is if I raise population now, I'm going into consumption, so that reduces my food. And I'm also not taking Frugality, which means I'm giving up another 2 food. And I felt like 3 food was, worth it for an action. So I made that call with my last action, and then I passed the turn. All right, so now, by the way, very important note here. I draw the heavy cavalry. Although this is kind of hysterical, I still can't use Confucius very well because I don't want to play my defense cards, but I don't want to put a colony in the deck either. And normally you'd be happy to throw this garbage tactic away, but I'm trying to play Genghis Khan, so I actually want this tactic. So Confucius is not cooperating with me. He was being most unwise and unhelpful as we pass over to Oleksandr's turn. So Oleksandr offers me another pact, and I'm not sure why he chose me for this pact. It's hard to say. At this point, the other game had finished, and I was the leader in the group. So you'd think if you're going to offer somebody a pact, you'd want it to be to the other opponent. And I don't know why he would be worried about Mattil having 2 extra blue tokens. It's hard to say. Maybe for some reason he thought that Mattil was going to reject it. I don't remember if in the other games, Mattil rejected one of these pacts or something and I accepted one. I feel like this happened multiple times, but now I can't remember if it was in this game or the other game. But anyway, maybe he just thought hey, this guy accepts these pacts. So he offered it to me. I think the blue tokens is correct to take. It's going to be a while before the colonies start showing up. I don't think it's wrong of Oleksandr to offer this to me. He doesn't have many military cards. If he doesn't do it now and waits to do it later, he might be foregoing the opportunity to play events, which is a big deal if you're getting a colonization bonus and want to get into colonies. So I think both plays are fine. Oleksandr's play here is, a little bit like risky. This is a little bit more fun. You're getting yourself a colonization bonus, which is really cool, and you could win colonies, which is very strong. There's a high upside, but of course there's a downside. You can now be corrupt, or you could help your opponent avoid corruption, and then those are just like more solid things. So I take the kind of boring, stodgy option. He takes the fun option, and he correctly judged that I would accept it, so everything works out great for everybody here. All right, he built a stage of the pyramids, which means he's not building a lab. This is, I think, okay. I do think with the pyramid specifically, it's one of those wonders where rushing it to get an extra action a turn sooner makes sense compared to getting a lab. I still would have built the lab, but I don't think there's anything wrong with going for the pyramids here. Now, the rest of his turn is a little bit interesting. It's not what I would have expected. I was expecting him to, take the printing press and do the Oleksandr special, which is to build a printing press instead of a lab. I also thought, if he doesn't do that, maybe he'll play it normal this game and take alchemy, because then, of course, he could potentially even save an action. Like, he could take alchemy, research it, upgrade this lab, and then try to, build the other lab straight and save an action, like something like that. But he doesn't do either of these things. What he does is he takes cartography, and with his last two actions, he takes urban growth. I did not see that coming. I'm not saying this is a mistake, but there is some machinations with this move I don't entirely understand. I'm not sure why he would value the urban growth so highly, and why he would pass an alchemy in the one action spot to take it, and his beloved printing press. So there is something going on here that doesn't quite make sense. It is worth noting that had he taken alchemy, with the cartography, the swordsman would have been falling away on my turn, so it's good that I took the swordsman when I did, because otherwise they would have fallen off. Although I guess if I hadn't taken these would have been one back. Never mind. Let's just go ahead and scratch that commentary. So his turn ends, and Matil starts. So Matil finishes the Colosseum, and what does Matil do with his last action? After replacing Cleopatra with Saladin, he takes alchemy and builds a lab. So he finishes his wonder and the lab on the same turn. So there's absolutely no reason to not have built this lab 2 turns ago, gotten 2 more science, and then built the Colosseum now. He could have done it. So I think that, not saying again that it's like a definitive, he blundered terribly and needs to go to through the ages jail, but this is a risk. There's a risk if you choose to rush your Colosseum over building your second lab that you end up throwing away 2 science and getting absolutely nowhere from the quote-unquote rushing of your wonder. All right, he takes patriotism, which is perfectly fine. There's not much else to do with his last action, and he's over to me, and so you know what I'm going to do. I recognize I have a problem, all right? I recognize that I have a problem. I take Genghis Khan and Swordsman way too much, but I mean, it's right here. It's right here in my lap. Okay, maybe that's not entirely fair. I did take Swordsman for 2 actions, but even if I hadn't, it would have been in my lap. So it's happening. I grabbed Genghis, but I don't replace Confucius yet. We need to have enough workers to build heavy cavalry first, which is a little bit of an undertaking. However, I did take frugality, so that's going to be a little bit easier than it might be otherwise. After grabbing Genghis, I can use the frugality and pump out 2 workers. So now I do need to wait. I need 2 more turns to pass. Well, this turn, the next turn I have 2 food. That turn, then I have 3 food. And then I can make my 3rd usable worker and create 3 swordsmen with heavy cavalry and Genghis Khan. Of course, there's 3 Age A cards left, and it's possible that I would get an event that helps me get some food, and if I did, then I could maybe do it a turn sooner. What to do with my last action? Well, cry salty tears over the fact that I'm not taking iron, and grab a stage of the Colossus. Could I have taken iron here? Well, if I had taken iron, I would have probably had to not build a stage of the Colossus and not raise my population the second time. Then I would have had 3 more food. But thanks to this naval agreement, I actually would not have been corrupt, so I could have taken the iron. Why didn't I take the iron? I got enough science to research it, and I could start making iron mines next turn. To be honest, I don't remember why I didn't take the iron. Maybe it's just a frisky mood. Maybe I thought I'll try to get the second copy. I'm not sure. For some reason, I just didn't feel like spending 2 actions to do it. I was like, heck it. Let's just go for Genghis. Let's get this Colossus built and not worry about the iron now. I guess I had an efficient turn with my actions, and I was hoping that maybe the next time iron rolled around, I would be able to grab it more efficiently somehow. So my turn ends. I get a bunch of stuff. This is actually unreal. I put a defense card in this turn to get Confucius's bonus. And look at this. I don't want to put colonies in here. Oleksandr has a bonus and cartography. So yes, I have a bonus to colonization as well with the Colossus, but he's going to have a 3 bonus potentially to my 1. So I can't play colonies. These are strength-based events. I definitely don't want to play that, at least not without some hesitation. Sure, I'm going to have the Colossus and Genghis, but if I rush this and it pops out too soon, then I'm going to be in trouble. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation here with these events. I just can't find like some just random old junk that I can throw into the deck without worrying about it. It's been a constant hassle this game to get Confucius's extra science. Okay, Oleksandr plays, and thanks to me, he has iron sitting in his lap for 1, which, you know, arguably should not have happened. We flip up planning, and I was very happy to see this. So our options are free worker, 2 rocks, or 3 cards. And yeah, I'll get a free warrior, because that's 2 rocks, plus the military action to actually make the warrior with, so that's really great. It means I'm going to get my army online. Well, not exactly a turn sooner, because I still have to wait for this food, but I do save a military action and 2 rocks with that one, so that's great. Oleksandr also chooses the free warrior. He builds the pyramids, and then he takes, after raising his population, iron and... okay, he's got a fighting band, and Frederick Barbarossa. And we've seen Oleksandr do pretty well with Frederick Barbarossa. That is a style of gameplay that can work really effectively. You get cartography, you get Barbarossa. You do need knights, which is going to be a little bit tricky with his low science, but then you know, sacrifice your units to win colonies and build them back cheaply with Barbarossa. So, and especially because now he has the 3 military actions, it's easier for him to use Barbarossa. So I was pretty unhappy to see that, but kudos to Oleksandr for making good use of a leader that other players, including myself, often ignore. All right, so I think that was a very reasonable turn, and it's over to Matil. So Matil researches alchemy, builds a lab, he takes knights for 2 actions, and he takes drama for the future. Now, how good is drama this game? Well, there is a Bach, and there is a Gaudi, and there is a Marlene, and there's a Chaplain. So I think that's everything. It's just about, I mean, apart from Shakespeare, which you could argue with the printing press and drama. But as far as just drama goes, everything is here that makes drama good, so it makes sense to grab that as a speculative move. With 5 actions from Saladin, you could also consider taking reserves and just, you know, getting extra rocks out of it. The knights for 2, I think, is a good play because you see what's brewing here, right? You can tell that your opponent's going to have Genghis, and Matil is pretty savvy. He respects it, so he makes sure that he gets these knights to be able to fight on military with. It's easy to be like, oh, 1-1-3, my opponent's Confucius, just kind of ignore it, but that's going to change potentially in a hurry. So props to him for recognizing what was happening and making the investment of resources to do something about it. This ends up being a nice pair of games, this one and the next one, which hasn't finished yet. It's like a good study on how to respond to Genghis. In this game, I think both opponents do a very good job responding to the fact that I have Genghis Khan and am threatening to get a very efficient, very high strength boost early in the game. So on my turn, I get a little bit lucky because alchemy ends up being in the 1 spot. Since Oleksandr didn't take it and Matil already had it, it just stays here. And not only do I get alchemy, but I also get engineering genius. Now, I throw a defense card in there, and maybe I should have just not been that timid. I mean, I do have the Colossus wrapping up here. Maybe I should have just thrown one of these strength things, but the problem is, okay, if I put a strength-based event in here, and then Oleksandr and Matil both play cards, or for that matter, and I play a card because I want the free science from Confucius, I actually might be kind of low on strength next time. As we'll see, what I have to do here is I take the alchemy, I get my free warrior from the event that Oleksandr played, the development of planning. I think it's time. I put down Genghis. I play swordsman. And then I research. Oh, hang on a second. I get this going right now. You know what? I think I messed up, actually. Hold up. I didn't realize I get everything online this turn. So I really should have just played one of these strength-based events instead of throwing a defense card away. I actually don't know why I was so afraid of this. Like, if I am scared, I could go for Crusades, which is just strongest steals 4 culture from the weakest. If, you know, I miss out on that, oh well. And then Call to Arms, I mean, that's like a more frisky move, but I'm thinking, hey, with a really early heavy cavalry, I could just make my opponents lose actions. I actually don't think I should have thrown a defense card away here. That, I do believe, was a mistake. So I get the heavy cavalry going. I thought it was a turn later, but because of something, I end up with a warrior to spare, or a worker to spare, and then I'm able to get this on right now. God, did I miscommentate? Maybe I miscommentated. I somehow have a worker out here faster than I thought I was going to, and I'm actually not sure how that happened, so sorry about that. But anyway, the heavy cavalry's on right now. I grab Engineering Genius, and I also take the Bread and Circuses. Now, this right here is something that I wasn't really sure about. It seemed like maybe it would have been smarter to grab the Cultural Heritage. But I thought, okay, I already have a lot of science saved up. Yes, my science production is low, but my next investment of science will be alchemy. So I think science is not the priority with 4 actions. Let's get these to fix my happy faces. This ends up being maybe the single most important turn of the single most important action of the entire game. These Bread and Circuses right here. So I'm glad I did this. I don't know if I would always spot that move in this case, but it ended up working out really great in this particular game. Now, one thing to note on this turn is I could have spent a rock to upgrade a sword, a warrior to a swordsman. And the thing is that is good to do before Age 1 ends, because you want to lose Age 1 card draws rather than Age 2 card draws. But the age isn't going to end before my next turn, so I didn't want to do it now. I thought, hey, let's draw a card right now. Maybe I get something I feel okay playing into the deck. And if I don't, well, then I can use leftover rocks to upgrade the swordsman later. But I really should have played Crusades or Call to Arms here. I'm not actually sure what I was thinking or how I talked myself into putting a defense card into the deck with Confucius. I throw away the Colony, which feels bad because I do have the Colossus, and the Colossus does have a colonization bonus, but with Oleksandr and this pack that you offered me and the cartography, I don't really feel comfortable putting colonies in there. It's Oleksandr's turn. He plays an event. We get 2 rocks or 2 food. So on his turn, he chooses the rocks. He plays Barbarossa. He takes the Knights that showed up, which is a little fortunate for him because there's a lot of cards left in the deck still. The second copy of Knights didn't have to come by, but it did, and it landed in the 2 action spot. So now he can research Knights, use up all the science, and use Barbarossa's ability to make a Knight, and he's got the Phalanx. So he is responding very well to his opponent playing Genghis Khan. He had the Phalanx in hand. He invested the resources to make sure he got it. He's pretty low on science, so I'm pretty happy about that. Notice it's one of the good things about Genghis Khan. Might he have done something different if I hadn't put this tactic together, which cost me very, very little effort? Maybe he would have rather done something else with the science. Maybe he would have rather played cartography and gotten some colonies. But because of the pressure, he, capitulated and spent the science on this. Whereas I did not have to spend that kind of science to accomplish it. But I still think it's the correct thing for him to do. You have to respect it when your opponent does something like this. And then for his last action, he uses that urban growth that he took for 2 actions a while ago and builds another lab. He has 1 action left, beg your pardon, and then he takes the cultural heritage, which really makes a lot of sense considering his low science. All right, it's Mattil. He's at 1 strength. He offers a trade routes agreement to Oleksandr, but Oleksandr rejects it. This prevents Mattil from using food as rock. He gets the Knights. He makes a Knight. He plays Patriotism. Makes a warrior. Does he have the other copy of Phalanx? He raises population. He takes irrigation. He upgrades a lab. And he does have the other copy of Phalanx. And I don't think there was anything that made more sense than that. That seemed like a very reasonable turn to me. Irrigation. There's not much else to do here. He could have taken Theology for Happy Faces, but he already has a Happy Face from the Colosseum, so it's not urgent. He also has drama that he could use perhaps to provide the other happy face if he doesn't want to build a temple. And this gives him a way to get his workers going a little bit higher in Age 2. And since both of them drew Phalanxes and both of them invested in Knights, they both paid 3 actions to take and research Knights. They are able to keep up with me. And Genghis is still getting culture, but at least they are not at risk of any kind of aggressions. And they can swap turns with each other, beating each other for tie breaks. All right, so that's his turn. He uses Saladin for 2 strength, which is important. You got to pay attention to these sorts of things. You could say, well, he's afraid of some events, and he's just doing that as a precautionary measure to be conservative. But most likely, if he does this, it's because he put something in there that he's afraid of. So I was a little bit hesitant to play things here because now I think, well, maybe there's an uncertain borders or something, or a raiders, and I end up actually losing resources even though I'm pretty high on strength. So both opponents did a very good job here responding to Genghis Khan. Ultimately, on my turn, I do play an event. I play the Call to Arms. There's one of the defense cards I put in. Had I played Call to Arms earlier, I don't think I could have played an event here, or if I did, I would have had to risk losing an action, which would have been pretty bad, with me being only at 4 actions. So I'm glad I didn't do that. But if a Crusades had been in there, yeah, I would have been fine with playing an event and having Matil steal 4 culture from Oleksandr. That isn't a huge deal. Like, obviously, I would have rather had the 4 culture, but 4 points at this stage is not a huge deal. I use my Engineering Genius to finish the Colossus. I played the Bread and Circuses, and I make a Bread and Circus. Now, that may seem a little bit odd. Why do that instead of researching alchemy and making a lab? In fact, I just spent 3 rocks to make an arena and an action to research it. So I could have researched alchemy and upgraded both labs. I spent 2 science for this. And I'm actually not sure I can justify that move. My last action is I make my population. I think it probably would have been better just to research alchemy and upgrade both labs. This way I am a little safer because I had the extra time to make a warrior from Pestilence. I don't have to blow up something I've created. I am also safe from the Rebellion, which would have cost me half of my turn if I didn't make this Bread and Circus. And I get an extra strength, which may matter for making Oleksandr a little worried, because now with the open borders, I am actually 6 strength ahead of him, so I could aggress upon him, I could like pressure him. So there's, there's some value to this, but maybe it's a bit timid. Maybe a better play is just to take 2 science and risk the consequences. All right, we draw some stuff that's probably not going to matter, and Oleksandr is up. He researches cartography with his very low science, which means he's holding off on iron, which means there's probably a colony in here. He makes another knight with Barbarossa's ability. He puts the Forbidden City under construction, gets the 2 science from Cultural Heritage, and takes Masonry to help him build the Forbidden City. Now, the Forbidden City, I have mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, I'm not a huge fan of this wonder. 8 rocks and 6 actions is really a lot to get an action. It's like a whole lot of time goes by before you start getting the value from your actions, and I don't like building Age 1 wonders when my rock production is 3. My friend Paul and I were actually just having a very interesting conversation. He was thinking that, people tend to overrate the wonders, and that a lot of the time, the action and rock cost is not worth the opportunity cost of making the wonder. And he and I think, both kind of agreed that we want to take an opportunistic stance towards wonders, where you build it if it lands in your lap and you can do it right away or the next turn, but embarking upon it as a project and working kind of hard to get it done is maybe dubious. Now, this is a philosophy that's in the early stages between me and a friend, but like in this case, you can kind of see it. He's low on science. He needs to get iron going. He can't do it next turn, which is maybe a point in favor of doing the wonder, because he can't get any science from here. So, he is not giving up the opportunity to research iron and upgrade 2 mines next time, for example. But he does have this that he wants to invest his rocks into. He might need to build a Happy Face solution. That's another place to use his rocks. And he's only making 3 rocks per turn. So I'm not a huge fan of this wonder. What do you do instead? Well, I admit that's a little tough. You end up having to make some kind of weird move, like taking a rich land, 2 actions for 2 rocks. But who knows? I mean, you're still saving a lot of actions compared to building the Forbidden City, so maybe it would have been worth it. But I understand he was in a tough turn here. All right, Matil is up. He makes a knight fresh without having the benefit of Barbarossa. And I have to admit, I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable here because I was about at my limit for strength. And that was with having the Colossus and the arena to go with Genghis Khan and the best Age 1 tactic for Genghis Khan. And still, I'm just barely holding on to my 3 culture, and when it's not my turn, I'm not even in the lead on strength. So my opponents did a good job responding to Genghis Khan and continuing to respond to Genghis Khan. He researches irrigation, grabs a couple of rich lands, and he takes frugality as well. Now, the upgrade to irrigation, we're going to look later and be like, he maybe shouldn't have done this because he's not upgrading these farms, and he could have used that 3 science. The thing is that his hand is full, so if he was going to do this turn, he needed to research irrigation to get it out of his hand. Now, an alternative possibility, instead of taking all these cards, he spent 3 of his 4 actions taking cards. He could have taken, let's say, just 2 of them, held the irrigation in hand. No, he cannot take 2 of them. Beg your pardon. If he takes 2 of them, starting a turn with irrigation, his hand is full. So he could have taken Code of Laws and tried to get it down next turn. If he had done that with Drama, Irrigation, and Code of Laws, he would have only then been able to take 1 more card, And then he would have had nothing to do with his other action because his hand would have been full and he would have had to research irrigation anyway. So whether he takes the Code of Laws here or not, or for that matter the Monarchy, which he could also research next turn, he still couldn't do that turn without researching the irrigation to get it out of his hand. So it's over to me, and I play an event. I really want to get these events while I'm in the lead. Unfortunately, this is just my stupid defense card, so maybe if that was the one that could have been a strength-based event, I could have profited from it. I grab the Code of Laws because I have a ton of science. I research it, and this doesn't actually stop me from also researching alchemy and upgrading a lab. I upgrade both labs, take a very principled turn. There's really nothing here worth taking. I mean, maybe the Monarchy, but I decide, you know what, let's just get my science up and running and try to get a government from H2. I also upgrade the warriors. Now I had one rock left over after all this, and I want to spend the card draw from H1 to do this rather than a card draw from H2. Plus it helps that now I'm beating Matil on ties during Oleksandr and Matil's event plays. Alright, so here's H2. I draw some stuff from Colossus. Oleksandr gets a worker from Hippocrates, but he's still corrupt. And we get hit with a Pestilence. And this is where this game starts taking a little bit of a dark turn, because I, unfortunately, am not super prepared for Pestilence. I mean, I do have a worker out here. I do. But this worker goes back there, and so I can't actually get this worker back out super easily, because I'm not making any food at the moment. Irrigation, second copy, was second from last in the deck, and for that matter, the iron was the very last card in the deck. So my decision not to take irrigation and iron when they came up to focus on other things kind of haunts me a bit now, because while I have the science to get them now, it is late, and there's always this temptation to wait for the age 2 production cards instead of taking the age 1s. And now I lose my worker, so that means that I'm behind and I can't, make another unit with them or something to continue building my strength. Oleksandr, however, also gets hit hard by this Pestilence. But he has a decent solution. He destroys an age... Sorry, beg your pardon. He loses an idle worker. Then he destroys an age A mine, researches iron, and he upgrades both mines. So obviously he would have rather not lost one of his bronze mines, but at least he's making 4 rocks and could potentially try to, get another mine going at some point. He grabs rich land, possibly with an eye toward doing just that. This is costly because he is giving up the chance to take a breakthrough, and he is still very low on science, so 2 science here would have been helpful, but it makes sense that he's trying to get his production up and running. Okay, Matil is up. He takes an interesting turn. He disbands warriors to avoid the Pestilence. He then spends a military action to disband a warrior. Then he actually builds a knight. And so you can see what he's doing here. He's going to try to take the heavy cavalry tactic. And I got to hand it to my opponents. I think heavy cavalry, I literally never do this. God, I don't know if literally is accurate. Maybe I've done this once in my life. But I pretty much never do heavy cavalry unless I have Genghis Khan specifically. So the fact that my opponents in this stage have routinely made use of the heavy cavalry that I put down with Genghis is really, really impressive to me. Because, kudos for doing that. I don't even think of it. Now, he actually had a heavy cavalry in his hand, so he didn't even need mine. He just had it, he kept it. Me, if I'm not Genghis Khan and I draw heavy cavalry, I'm just chucking it in the trash. Just chucking it straight in the trash. I don't even think about it. So this has been a bit of an inspiration of hey, maybe you should actually think about keeping heavy cavalry because it has a use case here. He's now getting pretty efficient strength from 3 units. With Saladin's help, he's actually tied with me. All right, so he plays the Frugality, grabs Code of Laws, researches it to help fix his actions. When with 2 actions left, he grabs iron. He doesn't want to dick around waiting for coal. He just wants to get started with the iron right now, which makes sense considering these rich lands are here. All right, so it's my turn. I want to play an event. I play international negotiations, and I flip up a colony. And I do try to win it, but thanks to that pact, Oleksandr is actually able to beat me with a bit of 6. So he plays a knight. That's 2, plus 3 is 5, plus 1 is 6. At the very least, he would have had to give up a warrior or another defense card to win this colony if it wasn't for the pact. Though I do believe the pact has given me enough value that I am not super salty about it. But the fact that he gets 2 yellow tokens, of course, is a big deal. I would have loved to have 2 yellow tokens at this point in the game. So not getting the colony, what am I going to do? Well, I borrow a page from Weidenbaum's playbook. This is something he does a lot because he often ignores irrigation. What he'll do is like with these extra leftover foods that you get at the end of age 1 that you like don't really ever even think about as being anything other than a nuisance holding up your blue tokens hostage. He takes reserves, uses it for food, and then gets another worker out of there. So that's how I'm going to bring back the worker I lost to pestilence. 2 food here, plus 2 food here, gets a worker out of the bank, and then I wait until I get selective breeding, and I make do with the workers in the meantime. And maybe that's a mistake. Maybe that is something to at the very least be done with caution, because irrigation was right here, and this would have been a pretty good stopgap measure to get some food flowing so I don't get caught up on workers. But I decide not to go for it. I upgrade my final warrior, so I'm beating Matil on tie breaks. I grab the breakthrough because science is very valuable. I take the drama, and I take urban growth. I completely ignore this irrigation. And this is maybe a lesson in, just because you see a good player do it, doesn't mean that you should do it yourself. Because probably, instead of, drama, which admittedly is a little bit random, and spoiler alert, ends up doing nothing this game, I should have just taken the irrigation. I got plenty of science. If nothing good comes up, and nothing good actually really is coming up, I already have a happy face solution. These yellow cards they're fine. Patriotism's a good card, don't get me wrong, but I mean, nothing amazing is coming up here. No government, no cannons, no cavalryman, no coal, no selective breeding. Nothing good has shown up in the first, 8 cards of the Age 2 deck. 9 maybe, I think, with this breakthrough, I'm not sure. No, it was irrigation then iron, so yes, 8 cards of the deck. Nothing really great has shown up, so I should have just taken irrigation and gotten to work on my farms next turn. But I throw it all away. I am currently hanging on to a lead here, squeezing every last ounce of juice here, having upgraded my warriors, and I got this arena, and I got the Colossus. So now Oleksandr is 5 strength behind, but he doesn't cancel the pact. He builds back his knight. He builds a mine. He grabs the rifles, so he's ready to perhaps at some point upgrade these warriors to rifles. Grabs patriotism to help him do that, and he grabs a frugality, which will eventually help him get both of these tokens out of the bank. So for now, I am 5 strength ahead of him, and I could do an aggression, but either I wasn't thinking about that, or I decided not to because of what I thought was happening with the event deck. It probably would have been worth going for. He would have needed an Age 2 defense card to block me, or 2 Age 1s with the 5 strength difference that we had. But I didn't end up going for it, so he did leave himself a little vulnerable here. Not that he had much choice, but, with 2 food, he could have used Barbarossa's ability to, make another knight, for example. It wouldn't have been impossible for him to get out of that vulnerable spot. Maybe he did just have a defense card, though I wasn't thinking about that at the time. All right, pedal to the metal. Plays iron, uses both rich lands to upgrade these mines, and what to do with his last 2 civil actions? Well, he starts upgrading his farms as well, just getting a nice solid foundation going, and he takes team sports, which is a really great solution, 2 happy face problems, and also worth noting is that Pierre d'Olympique is in the game, so getting the arenas could potentially have some extra value on top of just it being a solution for your happy faces. It's also cheaper than team sports. Well, 1 science more, but 2 rocks less for a happy face solution compared to organized religion. Now, in this case, the one thing that's missing from Matil is culture. He's done a great job hanging on with military. He's got the quote-unquote big 3 for economy from Age 1, but he's not making any culture. And notice this is why Genghis Khan is so good. I'm not making any culture either, except that I am getting 3 culture from Genghis. So I'm able to start pulling away, which might mean that I have flexibility later to do some things, since I don't have to worry about catching up on culture. Alright, so his turn ends, and I gotta decide what I'm doing with my turn. I do play an event instead of going for an aggression, which perhaps is a mistake. Perhaps I should have gone for this plunder. It's just 1 military action, and either I get rid of a defense card, which could help with colonizing later, or I actually steal some resources, which could be really useful since it would let me maybe get a population out. Barbarians is flipped. I have the most culture, but thankfully I am also the strongest, so nothing happens. And after this, I decide to make a pretty big move. This is a very committal line. I take the journalism, play reserves for food, make a worker, research journalism with breakthrough, and with urban growth, I actually build a journalist. I have just enough food and just enough rocks and just enough actions to do this. The science is a big deal, and the culture is a big deal. I could not make another lab because I'm a despot, so it wasn't just a frisky move and then I just spent all these extra resources compared to just making a lab. I think it was a reasonable line, but you have to be very careful doing something like this. I am now definitely out of workers. I have no rock economy. I am just science and culture and a tentative lead on strength. So it's risky, and I certainly would have felt better about it if this were irrigation instead of drama, which it very well could have been. Oleksandr's up. He develops masonry and gets to work on his wonder. This has been sitting there for a while, by the way, and only now he's finally getting around to it. He plays patriotism, and then he makes another knight. The way it works is he's going to adopt the heavy cavalry tactic from the common pool that Mattil and I both added there, and then he's going to use Barbarossa to make a knight. So now he's got the heavy... We all have heavy cavalry. Mattil and Oleksandr are using actual horses for this. I'm sort of faking it till I make it. And Oleksandr has these two warriors now that he can use to win colonies with, along with his huge colonization bonus. He upgrades his last mine instead of building the wonder, which I think is perfectly reasonable, and then he grabs urban growth. Begging your pardon. How much is it? It costs 4. Never mind. He had 3 rocks. He could not build the wonder. Maybe it actually would have made sense to finish the wonder and get the extra action a turn sooner, but he couldn't. So this is completely fine. And I believe that's his turn. Yes. Okay. One thing to note is he's not taking organized religion. That was the second copy, and Team Sports is already gone. So he's actually letting all Happy Face solutions go. But that's because he has Forbidden City, and he's going to essentially get 2 Happy Faces. That's not going to last him long, so it is a little bit of a risky move, just leaving yourself with 2 Happy Face solutions, and then forcing yourself to either just, have unhappy workers, or build constant temples and operas, or wait for the pro sports in H3 to actually get Happy Face solutions from your 3rd Happy Face onward. What could he have gotten rid of this turn to not put himself in that position? I'm honestly not sure. I mean, he could have not upgraded the final mine and taken organized religion to be safe. It's something to think about. All right, Mattil's up. He develops Team Sports, makes a Team Sportsman. He gets ahead of me on strength. So now, again, just want to point this out. My opponents, how they respond to Genghis, very strong response from both of them, I think. They both find a way to stay even with me. And now if Oleksandr gets 1 more strength, I am not even getting culture from Genghis anymore. And this is it. I got nothing. I squeezed all the juice out of the lemon. There's just nothing else I can do to raise my strength here, apart from researching navigation or strategy. That's it. I can't, because I'm just completely tapped out on my civilization. It's a very strong culture and science generator, but this strength is it. So if my opponents can keep pushing their strength further, I'm going to start to be in a whole freaking heck of a lot of trouble. All right, so he gets the arena down. What to do with his remaining actions? Well, he grabs cannon, which is very logical, and he takes the frugality. Now, the riflemen, which he has a discount with on the Colosseum, he lets sit, which suggests that he probably has something with cannon, either the mobile artillery, which is this one, or the fortifications. Fortifications! He remembered the name! He's the greatest through the ages genius this universe has ever seen. So he's probably got one of these if he's willing to take cannon for 2 actions, but is passing on riflemen for 1. I mean, there are more tactics with the rifles. There's the classic army and the conquistadors, and of course a number of cannon tactics that also involve a rifle, so you could say that the rifles and the cannon are equal for those. So it's like a little bit of a clue as to what he might be trying to angle for militarily. He also doesn't take Gaudi, so on my turn I could take Gaudi, and I could start making 3 culture per turn. Oh yeah, I also have this international trade agreement, so I offer this to Mattil, and that means that I get an extra food and Mattil gets an extra rock. This does mean that the open borders goes away, so now I have 1 military action less. But I figured that the military action was less valuable than getting an extra food, because this way I actually start making food, and I could potentially, with the help of reserves, get another worker out of here, which seemed really valuable to me. So the one problem with taking Gaudi is I lose 4 strength from Genghis, which is actually kind of a disaster. If I drop to 10 strength, I'm vulnerable to all the events, and there's nothing I can do to raise my strength. I could take Napoleon, but that's also committal. I'm still losing 2 strength when I do that, and I'm losing the culture. So what I decide to do here is I decide to leave Gaudi alone and wait for Darwin, because Darwin, like Gaudi, also gives me 3 strength, and I figured hopefully by then I would have some sort of a solution. Both cavalrymen are still in the deck, so I can get out of this heavy cavalry dependency. It's just going to take a little bit of work. Okay, I do get a bit lucky. I think I was the first person with a shot at this constitutional monarchy, and I have enough science saved over, just enough. So I research it, my actions are fixed, I just need to fix my economy, and I might have a very good game here. I take the rifles because I think it's worth it to just have the option to research techs for age 3, and in a pinch, I could just research it and upgrade my swords. It's not efficient, but I could do that and then, get 3 more strength that way. I take the breakthrough. I definitely thought about the wave of nationalism for 6 rocks. It may have been the correct play, regardless, to do this, because this 6 rocks, for example, would allow me to upgrade all my rifles for free if Oleksandr got any more strength. But I decided to go further for the science, so I could research things like navigation or strategy if they came up, and I passed the turn. Oleksandr is up. He finishes the Forbidden City, finally, and now has 6 actions. But his economy is a little bit troubled. He doesn't have food or science. Well, granted, I have science, but no food or rocks. So you might say he's equally troubled to me, except that because I had Genghis, I've just been getting a stupid amount of culture, and at least I have that going for me. But what's he going to do with his 6 actions? Well, he decides to take Napoleon and replace Barbarossa, because unlike me, he has no problems replacing his leader. And this is where the troubles continue, picking up where the pestilence left off. Now I'm in real trouble. I'm not making culture with Genghis anymore. And I'm actually in a little bit of danger here from Napoleon, because he can absolutely keep on pushing his strength. He grabs engineering genius and reserves and wave of nationalism. Wave of nationalism might be a little bit tricky for him to use, but there is a move he can make, right? He can just play a tactic on his turn. The heavy cavalry goes away, he loses the tactic bonus, drops his strength, and then he gets the rocks. So he could very well use this. He does miss the chance for opera, which is a way for him to have raised his culture. And maybe it would have been correct for him to take it, because having a way to generate culture is important. But in the short term, he doesn't really have the science to research it anyway, so I do understand why he chose to focus on yellow cards and strength instead. So Matil is up, he plays an event, and it's scientific breakthrough, which I put in, so I get a bunch of extra science. Maybe all the more reason why taking a breakthrough was not the smartest thing for me. He grabs Bach, plays it. Now he's got drama, and he's got the resources to generate drama. He researches the drama, makes a worker, and builds a dramatist. All right, so now he's starting to close the gap. But luckily, there is a gap, which means, because if there hadn't been, then I would be in really serious trouble at this point. Also, his strength goes down because he loses Saladin. He was getting 2 strength from Saladin before. So now he's the bottom, which means I'm a little bit safer from events. I can still get hit by raiders, but most of the really bad stuff, like the uncertain borders and the border conflict, I am no longer the target for. I don't play an event, regardless. I don't want to play Ravages of Time because I don't want to lose the Colossus until after we get H3 and I get the 3 Colossus draws. I don't want to play Economic Progress because I don't actually get much from it. You have to be careful. I used to play this event really wrongly, I think, the Economic Progress. I used to be like, oh, it's a safe event. Let me just shove it in there. But it's not really a safe event. Just because Economic Progress makes resources doesn't mean you can just safely play it. If your opponents are making more resources than you and they get ahead of you because of it, then putting it in was just a total mistake. I could have put in the civil unrest, and maybe I should have. I was worried perhaps that it would not trigger until H3 was here before I could fix this final happy face. But then again, if I don't fix that happy face, I'm in corruption or revolt. So I would have needed to fix it regardless. So maybe civil unrest would have been safe to play. And I should have just gotten the 2 points from it while I wasn't the last player. All right, I take the coal, I research it with breakthrough, I spend 6 rocks to upgrade a coal mine, so I'm starting to clamber out of this hole. I take selective breeding, I don't want to dick around, and I take reserves. Now, the selective breeding, there is another copy, but I just was like, you know what, screw it. Yes, I know that Matil doesn't want it, but I was like 100% certain that if I didn't take it, Oleksandr was going to. And yes, he might get another copy now, and yes, he might only have to pay 2 or even 1 action for it, but I was like, you know what, screw this. I got a coal, I have the science, let's just get this down, start fixing my farms next turn before this game gets out of control. So I pass the turn. I do miss out on both cannon and cavalry, cannon being especially significant because the cannon is the second copy, and now I'm going to be locked out of cannon. But at least both copies of cavalry are out here. Both my opponents have knights, so I'm hoping that the second one at least makes its way back down to me and I can grab it for 1 action next turn. Oleksandr's up, he plays an event, and it's Crusades, which I put in. So he steals 4 culture from Matil. I'm glad at least it's not Call to Arms, because then I would have lost an action and Matil would have lost 2. But I don't want to lose any actions at all. All right, so he plays a temple for an urban growth, grabs the cannon, because he's not a dummy. He researches the cannon, plays reserves for food, makes a worker. It's fine because of the Forbidden City, so now he's actually able to make another worker and make a cannon, which is a big deal because it's 5 flat strength thanks to Napoleon. So now Mattil and I are in some serious ass trouble. He's got a handful of military cards. He's got enough rocks and for the moment a worker to make even more strength with, and he's going to run away with his game if we can't catch up. And both of us have some problems doing that. Me, because I don't have my food going and I'm out of workers and I'd make this journalist that I might be regretting. And Mattil, just because he doesn't quite yet have the military technologies online and he didn't take a rifleman. On the other hand, he does have cannon with the science, rocks, and food to make a cannon, so he can maybe hold on a little bit better than I can. Whereas for me, the age is ending. I'm about to lose my heavy cavalry, and I don't have a replacement in place yet. So that's the problem with Genghis Khan, you know, he's a little bit like a drug, and you get addicted, and then when it's time to come off, you can crash really hard. So at this point, I was in a lot of trouble and extremely worried about this game. I believe by this point the other game had finished, so I was like, okay, well at least I beat Oleksandr. Like at least I had first and he had last, because it was looking like he's getting first and now I'm fighting with Mattil to get second. So if I can at least get second, then I still end up being 2 points ahead of Oleksandr across those 2 3-player games. He actually also had the Napoleonic army here, which is granted out of date, so it's not giving him anything at the moment. He was getting 4 strength from the heavy cavalry, and now he's getting 4 strength from an out-of-date Napoleonic army. But in a couple of turns, maybe, when he researches riflemen, we're gonna all have a really bad time. All right, Mattil is up, and he grabs a constitutional monarchy. He can just research it exactly, so it's good for him. He fixes his actions. With the rest of his actions, he raises population, makes another knight, and he's got hussars. So the hussars are a little bit not so great right now because it's only giving him 3 strength per 2 horses, but hey, that's better than 4 strength for 3 horses, and he's got 2 of these now, so he's ahead of me. My Genghis culture is shut off, not that it really matters at this point very much, and he's, you know, he and I are both playing the game of when you're being chased by the bear, you gotta outrun your friend. If you can't outrun the bear, that sort of a thing. So he's currently winning, and he's got Bach, so he's starting to close the gap. My spigot of culture from Genghis is shut off, and Genghis was about to disappear anyways. So Mattil is currently, I would say, in the lead of not getting mauled by the bear, because my rocks are not finished upgrading, and my food isn't even started. All right, he grabs a rich land to help with his other upgrades, and finishes upgrading his farm, so he passes the turn relatively comfortably. So on my turn, I'm in a little bit of a rough shape here. I grab the horses because I just need to switch away from Genghis. I research them. I take Charles Darwin, so I get my 3 culture. I'm down to 9, which is a little horrifying. But I blow up a mine. I mean, I hate doing this, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I make a horse with all my rocks. And then I copy this phalanx that my opponents used to use back when I was Genghis Khan and they were trying to keep up with me. So it's a little bit ironic. This ancient tactic from the Genghis Khan days is now keeping me afloat here. I didn't have to blow up a mine. I could have blown up a sword, but then I would have been at 13 because I would have lost a sword to make the horse. And that seemed a little bit rough. At the moment, with 7 and defense cards, I can at least withstand an aggression, though a war will be a problem. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't thrilled about this turn. Obviously, I would have rather researched selective breeding, played reserves for 3 cards, and spent 8 rocks upgrading both farms. That would have been great. Instead, I did this horrible turn, and I'm still in last. Now, one lucky thing that does happen is I do get navigation here, so I take it and I research it. It's worth noting, though, that I could have research strategy instead, and it would have only cost me 1 extra action to pick up instead of the navigation. So I do believe, if I remember correctly, that I missed this. I just didn't think about Charles Darwin lowering the cost of picking up tech cards. Where could I have gotten that extra action from? To be fair, it's a little tricky, but I could have gotten it by blowing up a sword to generate a worker instead of blowing up this mine. That would have meant I used my last military action instead of using my last civil action. But then I would have researched strategy. Now, the strategy would have given me 2 military actions back, and I would have gotten 1 extra strength compared to the navigation. So I would have gotten 1 extra strength from strategy, but I would have lost 2 from the sword. So I would have been at 16 instead of 17. So I would have lost to Mattil on ties, and I would have been 6 strength away instead of 5. But being 6 away, I can still defend with a defense card, and I would have gotten to draw 2 cards. So I do believe that was just an objective blunder. I should have taken the strategy instead of navigation. Now I leave strategy for my opponents, which is a very, very significant card. And especially for Oleksandr, who needs more military actions, it's a big deal that that's there. He doesn't need the navigation, but the strategy is very helpful for him. So a little bit of a mistake here, and a mistake at a pretty crucial time when I am horribly behind, about to be in revolt, just have no workers to work with whatsoever, and I'm desperately clinging, you know, just to try to survive in this game and get second place at this point. All right, I throw away a bunch of cards. I grab terrorism, which is unfortunate, which is, I mean, I guess is good. It means no one else is going to play it, but this is the player with the lowest culture blows up a building. The one thing I have is culture, so I can't play that card, and it's over to Oleksandr. All right, so I draw 3 cards thanks to Colossus. They are not super incredible cards. And Oleksandr is up. On his turn, he plays an event, and it's Call to Arms, which I did eventually put in. Now, thanks to the fact that I'm beating Matil on tiebreaks, I only lose 1 action instead of 2, although both of us are constitutional monarchy, so 1 extra action, okay, maybe wouldn't have been the biggest deal in the world. But in any case, this does happen, so I rue my decisions. And Oleksandr decides to put Harvard College under construction and take Revolutionary Idea. It's a tough call. This Harvard College, I mean, it does give him 3 science. He can build it next turn, and he needs science desperately. So on the one hand, that kind of does make sense. On the other hand, it means he's not getting strategy or selective breeding, which is kind of crazy. He's making himself wait for the mechanized agriculture. And obviously this could be at the bottom of the deck, or one comes out and an opponent takes it, and then the other one's in the bottom of the deck. I don't know. I'm not saying this is a mistake, but personally, I would have rather taken selective breeding and strategy. Even though, from what I now know, this Harvard College does end up being pretty good for him. Something to think about is the fact that he has a hand size of 6. He starts the turn with 3 cards in hand, so if he does take selective breeding and strategy and Revolutionary Idea, then his hand is full, and then he doesn't really have much else to do with his remaining 3 civil actions. He can't do anything. He can't make more buildings. I mean, he can make a temple, I guess, but he cannot take any of these cards here, like the scientific method or something. He'd have to do that instead of the Revolutionary Idea. So maybe because he didn't have enough science to research something this turn, he thought, hey, let's just use my actions because I can't otherwise. It's a complicated call. He makes another cannon for 5 rocks, so now he has 2 out-of-date Napoleonic armies, and with Revolutionary Idea, he can get Rifleman next turn and have 2 up-to-date Napoleonic armies. So now I am in a very bad place because I just had to blow up a mine to make this horse. I guess I could have blown up a sword to make the horse. So, you know, it's possible that, like, had I done that and gotten the strategy, I would be 1 strength less, and I would also have lost an extra civil action, but I would have been making 1 extra rock, and it would have been easier for me to stay in the game. As it is, I pass the turn with dread in my heart, and it's over to Matil. He plays an event, and it's new deposits, so we make rocks. I make the least, although this is still helpful for me, so it's more helpful for my opponents, but it is helpful for me because I desperately need these rocks to get my farms going. He upgrades his final mine, grabs the mechanized agriculture to stop me and Oleksandr from using it. He takes sufficient upgrades, so he's actually ready to improve his farms some more, which is actually sensible. He does need it. He's at the point in the bank where it's -3 consumption, so the irrigation is not making him any more workers, and he does need workers as well, so it's not like just a hate draft move. It perfectly makes sense that he would do this for his own benefit with the mechanized agriculture coming out so soon. So now with 50 cards left in the deck, Oleksandr is left to sweat it a little bit as to whether he's going to be able to get more workers to fuel his army. The good news for him is that with Riflemen, he's got a pretty big army already. This will increase his strength by, what is this? 2, 4, plus 7 instead of 4. So 2, 4, plus 6. That's 10. He's getting 10 more strength for that. He's up to 39. I mean, he can do some horrifying, terrifying things with that. All right, so Matil is up. He loses some to corruption, but he has a ton of rocks left. I would have loved to have these rocks. On my turn, I have only 8 rocks. But I play an event, and it's international negotiations. And that's good. I believe I definitely put this in there. I drew this at the beginning of H2 with the Colossus, and that's why I play an event, so I can choose. That way I can stop Oleksandr from choosing for himself what he gets if he plays an event. And what I decided to do here is, if you take a look at the situation, right? Oleksandr, what does he need? He needs science, and he needs food. So for the international negotiation, what I choose is for him to steal Matil's rocks. The way I see it is Matil has plenty of rocks. It goes from 19 to 16. oh no. And Oleksandr does have more rocks. He goes from 16 to 19, but the rocks aren't the issue. I mean, yes, obviously 3 rocks helps him, but if he could have stolen food and gotten a worker, or if he could have stolen science and gotten more text down, that would have been really significant for him. Okay, I grab the military buildup so I can someday maybe make some warriors. And the question is, what the hell am I doing now with my turn? Well, luckily, I had this international trade agreement, so I've been making a trickle of food. It's not enough to make a worker at the moment, but since I have this reserves, I can at least, after taking rockets, make reserves, make a worker, and build an arena to fix my revolt. Now, this doesn't actually fix my not having any workers problem, and since I lost that action from Call to Arms, I cannot take the sufficient upgrade to maybe get a cheaper upgrade with selective breeding later. So I have to pass a horrifying turn here, 11 strength behind, and I cannot defend with 2 Age 2 defense cards and then 2 more cards. That's a total of 10, so I am getting hit. Now, the good news is that if you look at it, Matil has 1 extra military action, but he is 2 strength behind, so maybe Oleksandr would prefer to go after Matil than going after me, though we both make the same culture and I have a cultural lead, so he probably would still go after me. But maybe he's worried that with the Colossus I drew all these cards, I'm more likely to have an H3 defense card, and he would choose not to pursue an aggression against me. So that's the hope, as I very timidly pass the turn. Oh, hang on a second, I don't pass the turn here? Oh, right, yes, I disband a swordsman, and I make a horse. Right, so I do this for 1 extra strength. Okay, so now with 2 defense cards and 2 regular cards, I do block an aggression since I'm now 10 behind instead of 11 behind. And what I'm trying to do here is play rockets, steal the Napoleonic army, and use military buildup to make some rockets. I'd have to make some deep cuts. I would need to, you know, blow up a mine or blow up labs to make those rockets, but yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do just to hang on. Maybe there's some hope and a prayer. The game will just trickle away to finish as we take a bunch of cards, and I can hang on to second place after Oleksandr has his way with me. I draw a defense card, which I'm very happy about. Oleksandr plays an event. It's Rebellion. Thankfully, it didn't happen on my turn or Matil's turn. I guess it couldn't have because it was part of the new stack. I played the last card of the previous stack, but thankfully, we all fixed our problems. Nothing... Okay, it's not thankful that my opponents fixed their problems, but thankfully, I fixed my problems, so no one loses any actions. He builds the Harvard College, and now he plays Revolutionary Idea, researches the rifles, and upgrades both rifles. He didn't even need the 3 rocks he stole from Matil to do this. He could just do it on his turn. And now he's got 39 freaking strength. So I guess it's just lucky he didn't have more military actions and couldn't, like, declare a war at the same time that he did this. I don't know if he had a war, obviously, but I don't think I drew any of the Age 2 wars. So none of them were accounted for. These could have easily been a war over territory or a war over technology, and thankfully he didn't have the actions to play one and upgrade his rifles in the same turn. He grabs some tanks and an endowment. It's interesting with these tanks. They end up not mattering that much. I think you could consider, instead of these 2 cards, this is just giving culture, to take patriotism, just to push it further. He only has 3 military actions. Patriotism, you gotta remember, is really relevant for the extra military action. If you're declaring war, having an extra military action to make an extra unit or an airplane or something could be a really big deal. I think I would have preferred that over the tanks. Simply because with the Napoleonic army, he's doing great. Like, he's doing great with that. He doesn't necessarily need to fish for a better tactic. On the other hand, he is set up for a modern army here. So maybe he was thinking he could try to pull that off. All right, the turn ends. The cards are not coming out of the deck nearly fast enough for my tastes. And we get an inhabited territory. This is, I mean, it's just insanely lucky. There were 4 cards in the deck. This came up second. It could have come up much later. It could have not been put in at all. I didn't put this in here. Someone else put this in. It's just lucky that someone else put this in and it came up when it did, and that I'm able to win it because I had enough cards to do it. If I hadn't drawn this defense card, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So it's just, I have no credit here. It's just an insane dose of luck for me that this actually happens. Actually, I don't even need I did not need the Age 3 defense card. I just needed 1 H2, but I believe I bid really high for it. I mean, I must have used all my defense cards for it. Like, yes, it's risky using all the defense cards, but I need these workers desperately, so I just got to take the chance. And it luckily ends up happening that my opponents either don't bid higher or can't bid higher. So I win it with a swordsman and an H2 defense. Matil's not dicking around. He takes the Air Forces, which he can make next turn, although he ends up not doing that because he makes the agriculture. He upgrades both of his farms, so now he's able to get workers again. And it's going to take him a little while to get these Air Forces running, but, you know, there are still in the deck 3 copies of Revolutionary Idea. He does have 7 actions, so he could, you know, if he ever has any chance to get it, just make sure he takes it, and then he'll be able to research Air Forces in 1 turn. He grabs Patriotism, which makes perfect sense, and he's now a little bit ahead of me. But luckily for me, what I get to do this turn is copy the Napoleonic Army. I'm at 14, by the way, because I lost the phalanx. And then I can research rockets, play military buildup, and actually make a rocket and a sword. Now, the advantage of doing this instead of making 2 rockets is that I'm a little bit more flexible with my rocks. But maybe it would have been better just to spend the extra 4 rocks and make the other rocket. Because, like, this needs to be my priority. The next thing that I do with my rocks from here is definitely to build a rocket. But what I do is I research selective breeding and upgrade a farm, which I do believe is a blunder. Because now you'll notice that I have 4 rocks next turn, and I'm a little bit unlucky with the yellow deck. This Age 3 deck, all 13 cards. There's nothing here that helps me with military. There's no patriotism. Granted, one of the patriotism's already gone, and none of the reserves have shown up yet. So I cannot make a rocket next turn, which means that I am screwed, just completely, totally screwed, caught with my pants down, no chance of winning this game if Oleksandr plays a war. Now, you might say, oh, well, but, you know, he doesn't have any military actions to declare war and build an army. Yeah, well, military theory shows up, and obviously you can plan for that. You can say, hey, neither copy of military theory has shown up. What if that shows up? Well, oh, he can't research, I beg your pardon. He cannot research military theory, so at least I have that going for me, that he can't research military theory. And he didn't take a patriotism, so he can't declare war and make 2 units for an extra army. But the thing is, he doesn't have to. He could make literally no increase to his strength, and it wouldn't matter, because with this line of research selective breeding upgrade farm, I don't have the science to research military theory myself, and I don't have enough science to make an airplane, and I don't have enough rocks to make a rocket. So what I should have done is I should have just built a rocket, gone down to 0 rocks this turn, and then next turn with 4 rocks built a sword. If I have to blow up a lab to do it, then I do it. But making this essentially exposed me to just being completely knocked out of the game, and I would say this is definitely my worst mistake in the game. So I take urban growth and pro sports. This will give me a way maybe in the future to research the pro sports and upgrade the arenas. That's 3 strength because the age 1s have 1 and the age 3s have 4. So it's like a way for me to boost my strength without needing more workers. And with my last action, I really actually thought about taking Bill Gates just for 2 rocks per turn. Ultimately, I decided not to, and the thing that kept me from doing that, even though I ended up passing the turn with an action, like I knew there was no way that I was ever going to get multimedia or democracy going, it was just never going to happen. The thing that kept me from doing that is Pierre de Coubertin, because he's here and he gives me 4 culture per turn, and he gives me another 8 culture just because he's overpowered like that. That possibility made it worthwhile for me not to take Gates. Just end the turn with an action unspent and hope that I get a better leader later. Luckily, Oleksandr does not play a war here. He does an ill infiltration on Matil and actually knocks out Bach to get 6 culture, which is pretty cool. You don't see an assassinate or I guess an infiltrate every day. He grabs Revolutionary Idea for 3, which makes perfect sense. This allows him to have some flexibility in researching something and also still getting an airplane or a military theory. He plays the Revolutionary Idea right now, thanks to Harvard College. He grabs Democracy, and then he also will not use his last action. He does not want to commit to either of these leaders. They make even less sense for him than they do for me, because they do literally nothing. I mean, Steve Jobs, I guess, does 4 culture for a rock if you research the technology, but he has his eye on something better than that, and then he passes the turn with another unspent action. So at least the deck screwing me over is okay, because it also kind of screwed Oleksandr over. He wasn't really able to have a productive turn here and get ahead in military or anything. All right, Matil is a little bit fortunate. He spends 4 actions to take the Manhattan Project under construction, and then he spends his last 3 actions and all his rocks building it. He gets 4 culture for his 4 science production, but more importantly, he gets 13 strength. So now I am once again in last place in the race away from the bear. So I take the military theory. I can't research it yet, but it at least gives me a way to get 5 strength next turn. And then I take Pierre, and I play him over Charles Darwin. Once again, the yellow deck has, or this age 3 deck has no yellow cards that would help me with my military strength. And okay, if maybe last time researching the selective breeding and upgrading a farmer was a calculated risk, this time spending my 4 rocks to upgrade is definitely a bad idea, because now Oleksandr, okay, you know what? I beg your pardon. I have to confess. I think I miscommentated. Last turn, I was thinking about this turn. Last turn, okay, researching selective breeding and upgrading a farm to get some food going, fine. Oleksandr did not have enough science then to research airplanes or military theory. He could have done a war on me and stolen some stuff, but he didn't have very many military actions, and he may have been more likely to target Matil anyway, because I was really far ahead of strength on Matil. Oleksandr maybe could have predicted that Matil could get the Manhattan Project if it showed up, but even with that, he still would have been 10 strength ahead. So fine. I think that, I beg your pardon, that move maybe was okay. Researching selective breeding and upgrading a farm worker instead of making a rocket over a sword. But this turn, upgrading a farmer is a huge blunder. For real this time. Because now Oleksandr has the science, if a military theory shows up, to declare war and play the military theory and blow up some labs and get another copy of his Napoleonic army online and completely knock me out of the game. Now, yes, he doesn't have very many cards. What are the odds this is a war of culture and that a military theory shows up? It's small, but it's one of those things. Good players get lucky more often than bad players because they give themselves more chances to get lucky, and correspondingly, bad players get unlucky more often than good players because they put themselves in a position to get unlucky more often. Right now, if you look at the food, I have 5, and I make, before this upgrade, 3. 5 plus 3 is 8. I have enough food to make 2 workers. Getting 2 extra food doesn't actually do anything for me, except suck up 4 rocks that could have been used to make a rocket next turn, which would give me 12 strength. 12! That's a lot of strength. That's like a 24-point swing against Oleksandr if he declares war on me. So leaving myself exposed like that, that's a big blunder. Okay, so to recap, and I apologize for the miscommentary, last turn, researching selective breeding and upgrading a farm was okay. I called it a blunder. It wasn't. I think that was fine. This turn, upgrading the second farm is a big mistake. And I learned this from watching Weidenbaum, though apparently the lesson didn't carry over to this game, is this idea of immediacy. We have these shortcuts when we play through the ages, like upgrading your stuff is good to do. So you just do it sometimes when you have an action sitting around. But in certain very extreme cases, when you're in a tough situation, you need to think about exactly how many resources you have and exactly what you plan to do with them, because these 2 food don't matter, but these 4 rocks do. So in the immediate context, the 4 rocks are better than the 2 food, and I should not just blindly follow the heuristic of, if you have an extra action sitting around, upgrade your farms. Instead of upgrading this farm, what could I have done? Well, admittedly, not much, but I could have just spent 3 actions to take an urban growth, which would be useful for me at some point down the line if I get pro sports. An urban growth with a pro sports and an arena gives you a free upgrade, because there's a 4 rock difference exactly. And that would have been more useful than potentially throwing the game away, upgrading a totally unnecessary farm. As it is with 2 actions, I raise my population, because I need to do that at some point anyways, and I just play the urban growth to make another arena. This does waste a rock, but it gives me 6 culture with Pierre, because he gives you 2 culture per arena. So when I played him, I was getting 4 culture immediately since I already had 2 arenas, and now I'm getting 6. So this is a little backbreaking for my opponents, the fact that I had all this culture from Genghis, and then I kept getting more culture from Darwin, and now in age 4, even with a really kind of garbage civilization, I'm still getting 6 culture per turn from my leader. It's very, very fortunate that he showed up when he did, and if not for that, I might have been in even more trouble than I was this game. All right, so it's over to me. I hold my breath, and thankfully, thank God, Oleksandr plays an aggression on me, which I can block with my defense cards, and not a war. He could have declared a war if he had one, and then taken military theory and built another cannon and rifle for 6 plus 7, 13 strength, plus the 5, which is 18 strength. He could have theoretically gone up to 57 strength versus my 29, 57 versus 29, and I would have had 4 rocks to respond with. Okay, I would have gotten 5 strength and like a sword. that's it. He would have basically knocked me out of the game. I mean, yes, I have a culture lead, but he would have basically swapped places with me, and I would have lost so much that I was very likely to fall behind to Matil. Now, luckily, because Oleksandr did assassinate Bach, Matil has lost a lot of culture from that. He lost like 3 culture per turn. So maybe I could have hung on just with my bigger culture generation. But yeah, he could have had like 57 versus my 29 versus my 34 and stolen. Okay, the numbers might be off like a little bit, but he would have stolen somewhere on the order of 28 culture from me for a 56 point swing against me. Like basically the entire culture I've generated this game. Luckily, I did not get punished for my mistake this time, but, this is why you gotta learn from your mistakes. You might get punished next time. And now, he researches democracy, and that's a questionable move, in my opinion. I think his main path to victory here is still to draw cards and hope to pull off a big military thing. He's got 2 workers in reserve in these labs. He could make another copy of the army. I think he's got to go for it. So what I would have done here is I would have taken and researched military theory to get my full draws after trying the failed aggression so that I don't fall behind. Another consideration, if you don't take military theory, is to take and research mechanized agriculture and upgrade both farms so you can start making workers. I think the military theory is more important because you have, again, following the principle of immediacy, you have still 2 workers available. You don't need 2 workers urgently, but that's what I would have done. Instead, he decides to research democracy, and I just don't think he has the science for this to justify the 3 culture and the extra civil actions that he's getting. I guess it's cool that he's getting, the extra, I believe, 3 actions because he was still a despot. Yeah, he was on 6 with pyramids and Forbidden City and despotism, and now he's up to 9 with democracy. And the actions do end up being helpful. He might not have been wrong to do this, but I do believe that either the military theory line or the mechanized agriculture line were more important for him to follow. So I heaved a sigh of relief. At the very least, I'll say this. I was overjoyed that he spent all of his science doing democracy. Now he plays this for 6 more culture. He does take the mechanized agriculture for later. He grabs computers, and he grabs movies, and he grabs engineering genius. Now, I do believe that's a mistake. Computers and movies, these are a pipe dream. We got 22 cards left in the deck in a 3-player game. He took another 3 cards, so like 5 more, we're getting down to 17. There's not many turns left. The last round of this game is round 18. This is round 15, so he's only got 3 turns left after this. And one of them, obviously, is the last turn of the game, so he's not going to be declaring war. He's only got 2 more chances to declare war. This is just, with his science production, it's just never going to happen. I do wonder if he was just like a little bit rattled, maybe that I was hanging on, and Matil was hanging on as well as we were. Maybe he was frustrated that he hadn't drawn a war, though he didn't have many military actions, so it would have been a little bit of an outside chance for him to get a war, but maybe he was frustrated and just kind of taking cards. With 3 actions that he spent taking computers and movies, which do literally nothing, he should have just taken a revolutionary idea to have more science to research military theory next time if that's still there for him. So now he passes the turn, and I was really hoping that Matil would take this military theory because I already took one. So if Matil took this one, then Oleksandr wouldn't get a copy of it. Unfortunately, Matil took the Wonder, which makes sense. He does have the food to make it. I'm lucky that he didn't have architecture or even masonry already down, because if he did, he could have actually built this thing and gotten like 31 2 points. And he would have basically caught up the distance between him and me. Just bam, be in the lead all of a sudden. I think I still would have had a chance to get ahead of him with my higher culture production, but yeah, that's why masonry and architecture can be good technologies, kids. But as it is, he raises his population, plays patriotism, gets the cannons down, he makes a cannon, he disbands a knight, makes another cannon, and then switches over to mobile artillery, which is not the most impressive. It's just 5 instead of 3 per tactic. So he only gets up like 4 strength, but hey, there it is. He's with the 6 raw strength from cannon, there he is, jumping up to 37. Is that he was at 29, so he got 8, 3, 6, 8. Okay, we're not gonna sit here and do math, but yeah, maybe I didn't quite calculate something or other that he did because Oh, right, because cannons aren't giving him 3, they're giving him 1, because he replaced a knight with a cannon. So he built an actual cannon, the other cannon came from a knight. Ah! So he got 4 from the cannons, plus 4 from the 2 tactics, 29 plus 8 is 37. Okay, there. So now Matil is sort of caught up to Oleksandr, and he's significantly ahead of me. And there, by the way, if you're wondering, there's no reason for him to make stages of this wonder. He had only 3 actions left after putting it under construction. So if he made 3 stages, I and Oleksandr could each still make a stage, and it wouldn't have changed anything. Now, Oleksandr doesn't actually have enough food to make a stage. So, okay, I would have made a stage, and then Matil would have finished it on his turn. He would have made 4 stages. It's no different to wait for me to make a stage, and then make 4 stages on his turn next time. Alright, so he passes the turn with, sadly, the military theory not being taken. So on my turn, I play an event, and it's Independence Declaration, which I am not thrilled about. It means that I cannot make a worker. Though, since I have to make a stage of the Wonder, it's just too big of a deal to not make a stage. I have to do this because it's 6 points for me, and it's taking 6 points away from Matil. So it's 6 ahead of Oleksandr and 12 ahead of Matil. I have to make a stage. So even if I got to keep this token, 6 minus 3 would have been 3, and I still would not have been able to make a worker here. Honestly, I actually didn't care. I was just thrilled to bits. There were way worse events. There could have been like a refugees and I could have lost a worker. I just put an event in because I felt like I needed to, but maybe I didn't. Maybe that was actually even a mistake to do that. But I put it in, didn't really care too much. I lost the colony. I built a stage of the International Red Cross, and here I do give myself a little bit of credit. I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit. After playing the Olympics and scoring 8 culture, hopefully discouraging both my opponents from doing anything nasty to me, I hatch a plot to do something that old me probably wouldn't have noticed, because there's a psychological dimension when you're like sweating bullets the whole time you're playing a game and you're constantly behind somebody on military and just desperately struggling to survive, and then you make a horrible blunder and uselessly upgrade a farm. And remember, this is an asynchronous game, so like I live with that dread for a day, just like, oh god, is he gonna declare war on me? Like, and then he doesn't, thank god. And I was like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, and then I'd have an extra 4 rocks and I could make a rocket. So, you know, you're in this survival mode, and you don't think about the fact that, you know, if you survive well enough, you might become the danger. But luckily for me, my brain kicked in here, and I was able to realize that, hey, I've actually got the opportunity to use this war over culture that I drew that I wasn't even thinking about because I was just trying to survive. And I was like, ha 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 ha, how am I ever going to do a war over culture? But I realized there's actually an opportunity for me to do that. So on this turn, I researched military theory. For the actions and for the 5 strength, I grabbed the air forces, which I can't research, but luckily there's a revolutionary idea here, so I can make air forces. And then I take urban growth, and then I pass the turn. So I'm scheming my schemes. I have the Olympics and my super friendly mustache to protect me, and we go over to Oleksandr. On his turn, nothing crazy, just plays an event. It's freedom of movement. And this is a really, really big deal because, okay, maybe, oh, you know what? Maybe it wasn't during my turn that I hatched the scheme. It was after I saw this card get flipped, which I don't believe I put in. I don't think I put this in here, but once this was flipped, then I was like, holy crap, I can actually go on the aggressive with this. And this is where Oleksandr makes a blunder of his own. He decides to use freedom of movement to turn a philosophy into a religion for free. It costs him 0 rocks, and okay, now he loses the science, which wasn't going to matter anyway, and he gets an extra culture. Okay. The thing is, he could have potentially noticed that a hurricane was coming, and he needed to be boarding up windows, you know, not looking for deals for hot dogs at Costco. This lab needed to turn into a rifle. He needed to pay the ample rocks that he has to do this. It would have only cost him 2. And the fact that he didn't, again, could be that he was just kind of frustrated maybe by how the game was going. Sort of these 2 card grabs are like evidence of a little bit of like frustrated gameplay. Maybe he just didn't look carefully enough at his opponent's boards. In any case, this ends up being a very instructive round for like the difference between someone who's really looking at his opponent's boards and paying attention versus what might happen if you're just following heuristics and, you know, playing kind of off the cuff. It may look like, okay, Oleksandr is in the lead. He's been in the lead the whole time. Matil and Borstin are struggling to catch up. But that's actually changing. Napoleon is about to die. So Oleksandr really only has 33 strength because 6 of his strength is coming from Napoleon. And he's actually quite vulnerable here with his no science, no military theory, and no airplanes. And to a lesser degree, a reduced amount of workers, though he could, of course, blow stuff up if needed to make those workers. Also, the military actions are significant here because he has 4, but one of them is from Napoleon, so he's actually going to drop to 3 because he chose to get the democracy instead of getting a military theory when he had the chance. He needed to notice that there was a problem coming his way and turn this lab into a rifle, but he just kind of used mental shortcuts, I would guess, And I say this not meaning any disrespect. This is exactly the kind of thing that I would do as well, where it's like, yeah, I'm fine on strength, don't need to worry about it. Let's just get a free culture and move on with my day. So he researches the mechanized agriculture. He upgrades both farms so he can make some workers in the future. He grabs revolutionary idea so he can research something costing up to 10. He grabs Ian Fleming. Maybe his plan was revolutionary idea into movies, into Fleming. On his last turn then, second to last turn, he would get this combo online, and that's 7 culture, and then, get like a 14 culture boost. But in reality, that was a pipe dream, and he needed to actually be taking like patriotism. He plays the revolutionary idea this turn thanks to Harvard College. If you look at the actions here, the revolutionary idea and the farm upgrades, fine, but the 2 actions spent taking Ian Fleming should instead have been 2 actions spent taking patriotism. And there is even a consideration that instead of upgrading the farms, he should have taken reserves. But the patriotism, at the very minimum, needed to happen instead of the leader. So now we go over to Matil's turn, and there's a nice contrast between Oleksandr's turn and Matil's. So Matil, I do believe, was paying attention to what was about to happen. On his turn, he builds the Red Cross, okay, because he has to do that, so I don't steal more culture from him. Then he raises population, makes another lab, and takes patriotism. Now, why is he making a random lab here? Well, the lab is needed to make air forces, and the patriotism is needed. If you do the math, 4 plus 7 is 11. 11 plus 4 is 15. It makes a difference between being or not being able to make 2 air forces. Now, you might say, well, Boris, I think you're kind of making a big deal out of nothing here. What else are we supposed to do with this turn? Well, modern infantry is here. Researching it gives them 2 culture. Maybe the reserves are here. Maybe you don't need air forces. Everything's kind of fine here. You don't need air forces. After Napoleon dies, you're in the lead. What do you need air forces for? What do you need 2 airplanes for? Maybe instead of building a lab and taking patriotism, someone could very easily have just like taken the reserves or even the multimedia and tried to build one next turn, or the modern infantry to research it for culture. But he made very deliberate choices that I believe he made, not just because he randomly felt like being able to make an air force and make 2 of them just in case, but because he saw what was about to happen. So on my turn, I think I was, again, sorry for the miscommentary. Commentating on Through the Ages is hard, it turns out. I don't think I hatched any grand schemes when I was taking this stuff. I think it was just taking it to kind of hold on to a strength lead, make sure that I was safe from wars, and, live my life. But once the freedom of movement got flipped on Oleksandr's turn, I realized something very important, which is that I could turn this alchemy into a rocket for 1 rock, and then I could play air forces with revolutionary idea, and I would have just enough rocks to actually make an air force. So I never do end up finishing upgrading these mines, but with the 4 rocks that I make, which is very significant actually, because if it wasn't for that colony that I won and lost, in the short term, I would have not had those workers. I would have had to blow up a mine, and I would have been making only 3 rocks per turn instead of 4. But because I'm making 4 all these turns, I have exactly enough rocks to turn an alchemy into a rocket and to make an airplane. And with that, I actually have enough strength to declare war on Oleksandr. Now, I don't have enough strength to declare war on Matil, because if you do the counting, right, I do my move, I play the revolutionary idea to make the airplane, I make the airplane, I get the worker, I have just enough rocks to make the airplane, this lab turned into a rocket, I have 58. Matil, after making 2 airplanes, each airplane is worth 10 with the mobile artillery tactic, he's going to go up to 57. And if someone has, you always have to make sure to think about this, the military alliance, always think about this before you declare war on someone. If you have not seen it and discarded it, you have to remember this card. If he or Oleksandr has that card, then he actually goes from 57 after the 2 airplanes to 60 and beats me in the war. So, make sure you think about that. I could not declare war on Matil. And this illustrates also the power of the Shadow Army. He doesn't actually have to research airplanes and make 2 airplanes. He still can, research multimedia or whatever and make a multimedia and get some culture. He can still do fun stuff. He doesn't actually have to do anything with this, but the fact that he can do it stops me from being able to declare war on him. Now contrast this with Oleksandr. Oleksandr could have had an extra rifle here, and if he had an extra rifle, then he would have been able to easily make a cannon and get an extra copy of the Napoleonic army. As it is, he still could do that, but it's not so easy for him. And, he is at the very least, regardless, like 3 strength behind. He only has 3 military actions. He has to spend 2 of them doing this. And because he has to do that and only has 1 military action left over, I could be really confident that no matter what combination of tactics or anything that he has in his hand, he can't beat me by a surprise, because playing the tactic would cost his last military action. Well, I guess if he has a different tactic, it's not, he's not going to make the rifle and the cannon necessarily. But let's say, for example, that he had turned the lab into a rifle, then I would have to worry about things like, tanks, and then upgrade tank, play rifle. Now this is his 4th rifle, and then modern army, right? And then now he has an up-to-date modern army and an out-of-date modern army, right? But like now, because he didn't turn this into a rifle, I don't even have to worry about that possibility. And with him only having 3 military actions on his turn, because the age is about to end and Napoleon dies before the war is resolved, that's just not an issue. So I now take the reserves. I don't end up using both of them, but I just take them because they're the only useful cards here. And I also there is a copy of reserves, and Oleksandr can take it and use it right away thanks to Harvard College, but I don't want him to have any reserves in future turns, and nothing else really matters here with my low science, so that was an easy way to spend my last 4 actions and make sure that the age ends on Oleksandr's turn. Now, that is significant because even though Napoleon was definitely going to die before the war resolved, I still want him to die on Oleksandr's turn so that he loses that crucial military action. Now, on this turn, I think Oleksandr may have been just a little bit frustrated because he doesn't, in my opinion, take the best line. This is actually a fun little exercise. Okay, so Napoleon's about to die. You're at 33 strength, and you're losing a military action. You have a war declared against you by frickin' Borystina, and how do you respond? So I'll pause for a second if you want to think about this puzzle. Okay, I had to pause the recording as well because I forgot what the correct answer was to my own puzzle. But what we're going to do is the following. First of all, I could have actually clicked on this. Napoleon dies, that wave of nationalism disappears, which is very critical. And then I think he plays an event. No, he doesn't play an event. He offers a military alliance to Mathilde. So he did have the military alliance, and he goes up to 36. Okay, all that is good and well. Now, what do you do? Well, the correct play, in my opinion, is to raise your population twice, research tanks, and then make a cannon and a rifle and upgrade a knight to a tank. This costs 5, 10, and then from 3 to 7 is another 4, which is 14, which is exactly how many rocks you have. So you spend your 14 rocks, cannon and rifle, upgrade knight to a tank. This gives you 9 flat strength bonus, because from a knight to a tank is 3, and then cannons and rifles are obviously 3 as well, so it's 9. You get an extra copy of the tactic, because you made the cannon and the rifle, that's 7. 9 plus 7 is 16, and then you go to a very respectable 52 strength. You are now 6 strength behind Borystina. You are going to have 11 culture stolen from you. That means you're 22 points behind Borystina, and you are now 11 points behind Mathilde in the exchange, which is bad. But it only costs you 3 actions to do this. 2 to make the workers, and 1 to research the tanks. So here he is making the rifles and the cannon. And you take the reserves for your last 6 actions, because you spent 2 actions making workers, 1 action researching tanks. For your last 6 actions, you take the United Nations and the reserves, and then you pass the turn. Then next turn, you're going to have 0 plus 6 is 6, plus 4 is 10, 10. Oh my god, did I do this? Oh my god, after all of that, did I count my math wrong? Oh, Jesus Christ. 9 plus 6 is 15. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, I gotta recalibrate my commentary. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Apparently you cannot upgrade a tank. You could have upgraded a tank if you turn a lab into a rifle, but it seems like you cannot actually upgrade a tank, because then you're going to be at 0. 3 to 7 is 4. Yep, you're going to be at 0. 6 plus 4 is 10. 10 plus 5 is 15, and you're 1 shy of the United Nations. Okay, so you have to settle for 49 strength, which means that you're losing an extra 3 culture from Borystina. Borystina is now stealing 9 plus 5, 14 culture from you, but you do get to build back the United Nations and get 16 points for the wonder. So upgrading a tank costs you the ability to make the United Nations, And that means that you're essentially, by building the United Nations instead of upgrading a tank, sacrificing 3 culture versus Matil to get 16 culture versus both players. But Oleksandr doesn't do this. Instead, he actually plays the reserves immediately, researches tanks, blows up his lab, and builds a tank. Now, that does give him 5 extra strength, so he's losing 5 extra culture, or losing 5 less culture to me and going 5 culture up against Matil, but it prevents him from taking United Nations, so he's giving up the ability to build this wonder for 16 rocks next turn and collect 16 points. That was not worth the 5 strength extra that he got from building this tank. So I guess actually he doesn't even need to research the tank since he didn't have enough rocks to upgrade a tank. Either he ended up falling 1 rock short, so he would have had an extra action left over that would have actually done nothing for him, unfortunately. But I think that was the way to go. Instead, he just goes as high as he can. But now, if you think of it this way, right, like with this war, I'm pretty sure it's pretty definite that I'm going to win the game. So how many points he loses to me doesn't matter. The fact that this tank is a 10-point swing against me is irrelevant. The fact that it's a 5-point swing against Matil is relevant, but 5 is less than 16. So he should have built the United Nations. I don't know if it would have changed the game, but that is something to think about in the end game, even when you're in a very frustrating spot. The last thing I will mention is that United Nations is a very expensive undertaking, but there is no opportunity cost. He doesn't have enough science after researching tanks to make the movies to get the points with Ian Fleming. So he wasn't actually going to give anything up by going for the United Nations. All right, Matil is up, plays an event. It's Impact of Industry, which I believe I put in because I needed to put an event in, and this was the least bad one. I net a point to my opponents for having played it. So he plays the Air Forces, gets the Patriotism, disbands a knight, makes an airplane, makes a worker. He builds another arena, and he grabs engineering and computers, none of which matters. It's back over to me. So on my turn, I steal 9 culture from Oleksandr, going up to 106. I play an event. It's the Impact of Strength. Impact of Balance flips, which is actually shockingly good for me, though it doesn't end up mattering in this case. I play reserves for food. I make a worker. I research pro sports. I use my worker actually to make another journalist for 2 culture, and then I play reserves and upgrade an Age A arena to an Age 3 arena in case Impact of Competition or Impact of Architecture are in there. I could have done other things with this. I could have made more arenas, but I was like, you know what, let's just stop overthinking this stuff, and let's just get the 2 culture from the journalist, and in case maybe Impact of Science went in, 2 science keeps me ahead of Oleksandr, though I will still lose on tie breaks to Matil, but this is also Impact of Architecture. I didn't want to overthink it. And then I take the reserves. So, a fun little story here with Pierre de Coubertin. You know, he did the Olympic Games, and as soon as the Olympic Games ended, he's like, all right, this friendly mustache has fooled people long enough. It's time to go to war. And cementing out of nowhere, all of a sudden, military victory. Oleksandr plays his turn. He doesn't have much to do here. He raises population, builds another temple. He upgrades knights to tanks in case of Impact of Competition, and then that's all there is to do. And he passes the turn. So the final scoring, the question is, will Oleksandr get to catch up to Matil? And he actually starts with Impact of Technology by doing just that. The second event here is the Impact of Harmony, which Matil does very well in, and he gets back basically what he just lost to Oleksandr. One interesting thing to note is that this Impact of Strength might have been a mistake, because if you look at it, Oleksandr's really close to Matil. So in that other 4-player game where I put the Impact of Colonies in and gave Oleksandr 2nd place instead of 4th place, I was really terrified I did that again, because I didn't need these 14 points to secure the lead. Maybe I should have kept it in hand. But luckily in this case, I don't get punished for my mistake, because with the Impact of Culture, which does bring Oleksandr to within a point of Matil, the last thing is Impact of Happiness, which Matil and I both max out. And so it ends up being okay. But that was really harrowing, so probably I actually should have not played that Impact of Strength. But this time, Oleksandr doesn't catch a break, and he ends another 3-player game in last place, which is really big for me because not only do I get the points from winning, but I deprive points from the person who was leading. And this actually puts me in a really good position to take down the entire group. We'll take a look at the standings here in just a moment. Oh, by the way, we'll say the video is over, so please, thank you so much for watching. I know these are long. I really appreciate your time. Please like and or subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. If you want to stick around for bonus time, let's take a look at the current standings in the group. So the tournament situation now looks really good for me because Oleksandr lost both of the 3-player games that he had with me, and I won both of those games due to some pretty ridiculous luck at times and also not being punished for my mistakes. I am now 8 points ahead of him, which means that if he wins the 3-player game that does not involve me, he'll be at 14. But if I can at least get second place in the other game, I'm going to be at 19. And that means that if I win 2 games in the 2-player series, then I'm going to go up to 19 plus 8 is 27, and I will win the group. Because at 14 points, even if he wins all 3, like even if he beats me, if I'm his one loss, let's say, or if my game against him is the one game I lose and I win the other 2, even if he beats me and beats the other opponents, he's only going to go from 14 to 26. And that will not be enough to catch up to my theoretical 17 plus 2, let's say, plus 8 is 27. If I manage to win the 3rd game that I'm playing, which I actually, spoiler alert, may be able to do, we are really close to the end here. We need to get a move from Gandhi in here to make it happen. Then I'm up to 22 points, and now, if I win just 1 game of the 2-player games, I believe I'll be guaranteed to win the group. Because if Oleksandr is at 14 and wins all 3, goes to 26. If I go up to 22 with a win in the other 3-player game, and then I get 1 win, I'm also at 26, but I will beat him on tiebreakers because I beat him in both 3-player games and 1 of the 4-player games. So that's 3 wins. You need to have, assuming no ties, 3 head-to-head wins against one of the people in your group in order to beat them in case of a tie. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like and or subscribe, and I'll hopefully be back soon to commentate on this game in a few days. Take care, everybody.